The conflicts between states and man can be resolved. Unfortunately not with the systems we have implemented over the millennia. We have only invented two different systems up to now, as discussed in another video. Here is the only way out, I fear. Ultimately, we need to go from a comparing to others frame of mind to an enough is enough, good is good enough frame of mind. And we need to reorganize. Every living organism, because of evolution, has behavior, whether consciously or not, to support its survival. One could infer that with enough consciousness arises, a fear of death is even the primary motivator. Experience has shown to the individual, from now on called number one, that the chance of success, defined as living longer, increases with obliging to certain signals. Nowadays, we describe emotions such as anger, love, jealousy, fear, and greed as evolutionary support tools. Here is some more trivial information. The individual exists in an environment. The environment contains other organisms, some of which are like number one. Some are weaker, some are stronger. Food is good. More food is better, it seems. The concept of enough is not relevant. The concept of comparing is leading. Long story short, we organize. Last couple of millennia we have hierarchically organized our dependencies. Strongest float to the top on average and by definition, and the weakest to the bottom. Evolution continues. Evolution has no direction, no logic, no goals. Number one reasons in terms of a hierarchy of goals, fear of death probably at the top. This helps to stay alive. Evolution, being without goal, can also be explained using goals and be fit into the hierarchy of goals as number one sees fit. Number one has enough mental capabilities to more or less shape his environment. Number one strives to be number one. Number one thinks there is always going to be a number one in a society, depending on the definition of success. And in that case, it better be me. There is always going to be a winner, like in a golf tournament. It's organized that way. Remise just isn't that sexy. It brings in less money, and enough is not enough. As long as we keep organizing society this way, unnecessary waste and conflicts will occur. Number one has priorities. He must be number one. We can reorganize, but number one will no longer be number one in his environment. That is dangerous for number one. The paradox is that it would be optimal if number one realizes that number one should act as if he is number last. Number one will make a conflict to defend that position. That used to work for number one. Nowadays, the situation is too complex for number one to understand. Back in the day, the organism called mankind could afford to go about its business this way. There was enough space, there were enough resources. Today the concept of comparing is still leading, but has shifted from individual to community. Larger and larger conflicts and problems on bigger scales arise. Problems should be solved at least at the level that they play out, remember? We are at a crossroad in time that will probably play over decennia. As long as number one thinks that gathering stuff is wealth and success, number one will go on gathering stuff. There is a limit to stuff. In the not so long run, the definition of success needs to be changed. We live at a moment in time when gathering stuff should be more defined in terms of criminal instead of success. Stuff equals pollution. Maybe number one will survive, but will everything else? Knowing what some of us know now, we would be very stupid and unsuccessful not to reorganize. The knowledge of how is also there. The problem is in the system. Today, number one is not capable enough, but hopefully trustworthy. Part of the reorganization for number one will be to adapt. The sooner the better, but local pain will be inevitable.